Oh, I hate it. I'm burning it. I'm burning the table. Every season brings a different up on the thing. You know, it does. Now she's warped up to the left and warped down to the right.
It's only, and the thing is, they haven't even got hot yet.
No, I think it's because it's been.
Pretty soon you'll be able to take this part off and it'll just grow over there.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll burn it and see if somebody else will step up and make a table. Then we'll just be sitting on the floor.
Why don't you go home and start over again today?
I can tell you
Boom
one
roasted.
solution.
One, I'll hire somebody.
www.amazon.com.
Yeah. That'll be what's Amazon? What's Amazon? How do I build one?
I could use his
That's
account.
a stupid hat.
It's a good hat. If you'd like to get yourself, I'm not saying their name unless they want to give me credit. Screw it. I'll be nice. You can go to Wear Your Roots. Warren knows them pretty good. They have pretty slick stuff for every state you could look at.
He's no different than an attorney. He wants to charge for every little thing. I must mention their name, so they're going to pay me.
Yeah, look how many people we're reaching right now.
Right, and she forwarded an email that helps you reach thousands,
they could go
millions.
Google it, right? No, they did not. They have a freaking verification email that is for us, you peckerneck.
But it's so that we can reach all these people.
Man, you should just go pay everybody. Maybe we'll be bankrupt by the time you're okay with paying everybody.
What happened?
He pisses me off with defending companies like no other. Never defend your own company. You always defend everybody else.
That's funny.
Hey. Did you know butterflies fart pink dust?
No, I did not.
You just made that up.
I'm just trying to lighten the room.
All right. I think we're about ready to start. I'm going to apologize for Easton specifically this morning because I have no idea which side of the bed he got up on, but it was not the right one.
I actually have been in a really, really good mood this morning, singing the whole entire way until I got here. Dan really pissed me off, and then David pissed me off more. That's what it was.
Good work, Dan. Fist bump, buddy.
Dynamite up your ass. Mm-hmm. Kind of like it.
Welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast, folks. I am David Holder. I'm your host. I'm joined here today by my co-hosts, and I don't know what to call him this morning, but anyhow, we'll see what happens. Warren and Easton are here. Today's topic is going to be about shooting or sighting in your bow. And let me read this exactly how it is so that you can understand the communication issues I have problems with these frickin' jerks.
It was a checkup text. That wasn't
discussing the wonderful topic of sighting in your bow and the arrows fired from them. So that's what we're talking about today. Sighting in your bow and the arrows fired from them.
What is so confusing about that?
Just the way it's written.
Which I will say, if you're thinking about clicking off because you don't know how, you're like, I know how to sight in my bow, hold. I think this is actually a lot more interesting topic than what you may think. So give us a couple minutes to see if we can convince you that this was a valuable podcast.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Because I could definitely hear people like, oh, well, I know how to move my sight left, right, up, down. I don't need this. And we're going to go quite a bit more in depth than that.
We potentially would have already lost them on some of the other ones, too. We probably should have done that at the beginning.
We would have lost them as soon as they heard you ranting this morning. That's when everyone was like, I'm tired of that. Click.
I'm going to kill you.
There's a fly on you. Ooh. Oh.
I'll ref.
David Holder.
Chill your
stay in your lane, and let's do a podcast.
How dare him even think he's going to attempt to tell me what to do this morning?
I'm waiting for Warren. This is your job.
We haven't gotten to that part yet. Okay.
Dad's done introducing.
Eric Robards. I personally like shooting at long distances. In my opinion, long distances will fix. Oh, did I read these ones last time? Okay. We'll go to the other one. It's only had a day, though. Let's see. We've got a couple on here. Eric Robards. When I was in college, I worked at our local archery shop. 9 out of 10 beginners that came through the shop got a whisker biscuit rest. They are easy to tune and fail-proof. We sold tons of bear ready-to-hunt packages. Great podcast, guys. William Ayers, SP4TT. Another great episode, guys. Great breakdown for the beginner getting into archery. David Harrison, 9731. Well, you guys convinced me. Like always, a couple weeks ago, I got handmade strings put on my bow. For the past year, I wanted to upgrade my sight. So now I guess that's next on my list. Going to be a perfect
Which
podcast.
one was that?
Great
Go,
work,
David.
guys. Can't wait
Good
to hear
job.
about the bear hunt. Much love from Virginia.
Warren, which one was that?
David Harrison.
Oh, somebody just asked me to buy my old site after saying that. I got to look at that on Facebook.
Are they left-handed?
I don't know. They just said, I heard that you sold your site on, or you just bought a new site on Facebook. Can I buy your old one? Or on your podcast?
I'm going to kill this fella.
Lewis says, absolutely correct to go to a local shop and get set up properly first so you don't develop bad habits and have the right equipment for you. Then work on consistency and work your way out. And always only shoot animals where you're comfortable and confident at. Agreed. Vega says, can't wait for the rest of this series, although I could use longer podcasts while I'm driving to work. I think I read that one last time, too. A brand new hunter, thanks for the tip. Weston Detmer. You're welcome, Weston.
Hey, Weston won something from us.
That's the Weston?
Yes, I just remember the name. So
First name or last name, too?
both Weston Detmer.
Holy
isn't it?
cow. That's cool.
Yeah, he won a hat. Cree Lake hat.
Cree Lake hat.
Good
But
work, Weston
What
Detmer.
hat was it? Oh.
if you've got any value, if you found anything helpful in here, if you're especially for a new bow hunter, please do us a favor and share the podcast. Leave a review. We're up at like 364 5 stars on Spotify.
We should have read our brilliant idea guy. I should have printed him off.
Brilliant idea.
His brilliant idea.
Oh, yeah. So we're closing
Brilliant.
in on 400 5 stars.
Brilliant.
On Spotify.
Yeah, because we got rid of whoever was the one jackass, as Warren would say.
Yeah, our one 4
one-
point pulled us to a 4.9.
It wasn't even a 4-star, was it? Or
I don't know
was
what
a
he-
4-star.
I think he had to have given us a 1 star, and that's the only reason
Oh.
the way that
It was Biden.
You heard our podcast.
Brilliant.
Okay, today's story is from Joshua Resch, and he submitted this in turkey season, so we're a little bit past it. All these are turkey stories, but this is earlier in turkey season. Hey guys, hope things are going well for you. I just wanted to say that I love your podcast. I've learned so much from you guys and taking in your experiences and using these tools when I go hunting. Maryland's turkey season opened up last week, and I took my 11-year-old for his very first turkey hunt. I've been on it a few times when I was a kid up in the Appalachians, where I grew up. So in southwestern Pennsylvania and western Maryland, with some success. Holy cow, I can't talk. No decoys, just calling. So it could be challenging. But listening to your podcast, I went ahead and bought a laying hen and a strutting tom from Avian X. So this past Saturday, we went to set up our blind, put our 2 decoys out, and I did some calling. We had turkeys I could hear from across the road, which a buddy of mine had said that's where they've been every day lately. We don't have access to that property, but I was hoping that maybe they crossed over into the prior evening. I would call every now and then, and I could hear a gobble responding across the road. He wasn't getting any closer, and my son fell asleep in the blind. We know how that goes.
Yeah, we do.
Warren actually has a pretty good sleeping turkey story, too, from not when he was a kid, if you guys want to ask him about it. Only hearing a couple yelps and gobbles across the road, I figured the morning was not going to be our morning. However, at about 6:45, I thought I'd try again. I gave a call, and I heard a gobble on our side of the property this time. I waited a couple minutes to see if it would give me another gobble and to see how bad he really wanted it. Nothing, so I gave him another call. This time he answered. He was a lot closer. The distance he had closed was incredibly quick. I woke up my son and said, I have one coming in. Get ready. My son grabbed my dad's 410 and he used when he was a kid. Just to date my dad, he was born in 57. That was mean. 1950. Ooh, yeah, he's up there. So Eli shouldered the Stevens 410. I let him use a set of sticks in the blind to help steady himself. I gave another call, and the gobbler came in with 3 jakes. Got within 40 to 50 yards in two of our decoys, and then they stopped. I knew I should have used some fishing line. Yes, you should have. I forgot that. However, as the gobbler would continue to strut and turn, my son was able to get a bead on him and made a great shot. The bird was about 25 yards from the blind. Beautiful first turkey. He weighed 24 pounds, had a 9 3/4 inch bird, and spurs were 1.5 inches.
Beard, not bird.
Beard, yeah. Holy crap, 1.5 inch spurs.
this was not a Jake.
New. He said the one Tom came in with 3 jakes. It was a great morning. Thanks, you guys. Thank you guys again, and take care. It's always
Okay.
interesting to me to see spurs that big with a 9-inch beard. You'd think that they'd,
Correlate?
Yeah, they don't correlate at all, I don't feel like.
I would agree.
Sweet.
What was his first name?
Joshua.
Joshua. Congratulations, Joshua. And I know the feeling of sitting there with a sleeping child that you seem like you're hunting for or with or whatever. But
You better look at both of us for that.
oh yeah, no, I agree.
I do not sleep very often.
None of us sleep anymore at all.
even when I was younger,
Oh yeah.
I'd take an occasional nap.
I can't say the same when I was younger. When I was younger, I was pretty much anytime sitting there, I was asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
Even when I was dangling.
Congrats to your son for making a good shot, and welcome to the turkey killing woods and decoy uses and things like that. We need to mention, Nick, what was the other one? The 3 winners.
Oh, it's Nick's friend. Nick's friend on here.
Jeremy Rubsick. I know. What was that other one? Jay Lewick. All right. So we chose 3 winners yesterday. If you guys missed social media, we chose Jeremy Rubsick, Weston Detmer, and Jay Lewick. Those were our 3 winners that won hats and a raised hunting sweatshirt because Nick didn't kill a bear in Canada. And I was nice enough still to do it because we promised that these guys would win something if Nick killed a bear, but he did not.
Womp womp.
Yeah, Nick, I don't know what his problem is. He had a whole evening to kill one.
You could give him crap back because couldn't you have shot like a 2-year-old
No,
or a cub?
he did not have a
Oh,
shot.
I thought you had a little one that came in. You guys decided not to. I was gonna say they would have given you crap for shooting that, but you didn't. So
I had 0 time to shoot either of the 2 bears that came in because the first one immediately ran off, and the second one gave us 0 looks.
Yeah.
I think Nick would have lasered a 2.
I think so too.
Even a cub he'd have been considering.
He would have had Dad behind him saying, "Don't do that, don't do that."
Well, he was pretty set on. We knew the bear that we were looking for there. Nick was like, "Okay, I know," and it was a telltale bear because it had a big white blaze on his chest. So we would have known had it come in. So it did not. But should I do a little recap of the bear hunt because we have not talked about it at all, have we?
I think if you're going to do that, I think you should do it after.
Okay.
Personally, thoughts?
We'll talk about bears later.
They got
on.
their whole podcast coming out too.
Yeah, that's
They got
right.
a
We
whole one coming.
stay tuned because we do. I don't know what week it's coming out, but we have a podcast that we did with No Fly Zone Johnny Prozac and Cree Lake Brandon Schreiber from up in Saskatchewan, Canada.
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
how are we breaking this down? Shoot
Well,
your friggin' bow.
Probably
Get your
start
bow
with
out right
arrows
now.
to continue with because we wanted to do that on the last one.
The
and we ran
equipment
out of
part.
time.
I think arrows and what sights? So single pin.
I was just
3
going
pin,
off of
5
with,
pin.
we were about to our arrows, and then we're going to get more detailed on sights and stuff too. But we can do either one; it doesn't matter. They're both going to end up being really detailed if we get into it.
Okay, well, I think the focus is sighting in, so we just don't want to get too deep into the arrow rabbit hole because, as we know, that can be a whole podcast in itself.
I'm saying we missed it last podcast completely.
I know. I'm just saying we just don't want to go way down the.
You don't need to go super
Come on,
heavy.
land
The best thing you can do for arrows, if you're genuinely keeping it simple, is finding something that fits your wallet because you can get way out of your wallet very quickly.
What's in your wallet?
And something that is not overly complicated as far as all the. Weirdly enough, you can get like your deep 6 inserts, or you can get hidden inserts, or you can get outserts and everything else. Just go get something very simple, in my opinion. Like a Shields, go to Shields and get like their standard stuff. It's going to last you for.
Yeah, but not if you live in Virginia.
6
They don't have
years.
shields. You have to drive a long ways.
What would you have in a Shield or have there?
Cabela's or Bass
Okay, you
Pro
go to
probably.
Cabela's. They're all the same arrow anyway. It's just a different label.
He's on your hat.
Your
I
your
don't
biggest issue with arrows, I think that the reason we would tell you not to go stupid heavy is because you get to a point where there's completely diminishing returns. One, there's been several studies now. There's an engineer from Matthews that's done a bunch that have shown that your 420 grain arrows are getting the same amount of penetration or more than these 600 grain arrows because of the speed that then they're carrying more velocity and kinetic energy through whatever it is you're shooting. Did you guys watch any of that video that Lewis sent us the other day?
I can't. I don't have TikTok. Everybody sends me TikTok videos.
Yeah,
I don't have
I
it.
can't watch it either.
And that's the only app that you can't watch without having it.
Oh well, you should have watched it because it was pretty funny.
How are we supposed to watch it?
When did you not have TikTok?
Since they banned it, and then I never got it back.
You can't just re-download it.
I don't want it back.
Okay. Well, anyways, this guy takes just a dry cow bone and shoots it with fixed blade broadheads. You know, because since you're shooting a fixed blade, you can shoot everything in the shoulder.
Right.
And the first one, he ruined the company. I can't remember the company's name.
He did this. This was released a few years ago. This is the Archery dude, Archery shop. He owns his own shop.
Yeah, but I don't. It was posted recently.
Oh.
And
he's done the same test then for a while.
Well, the first one he shoots it, it's a fixed blade, and it
disintegrates the broadhead.
Absolutely, just dust. Like it was bad. And then, so I don't remember what company that was, but I'm sure that they don't like that guy very much because it was like and then all of the other ones, none got through until there was an iron will that did get through. But the thing I thought was kind of funny in there was that all of these comments are all talking about, oh, well, it's different on a dry bone versus a live one. A live one's going to be more dense than a dried out bone.
No, it wouldn't.
No,
yeah,
maybe
it
not,
would.
But
I believe 100% it would.
More flexibility, I think, because you're gonna have all the. I'm not agreeing
Sitting
with
in
them.
the sun,
I'm not
it starts
agreeing
to
with
go
them.
to chalk.
I don't see it making a huge difference. But I think as some things as they dry out do become more dense.
Cement starts liquid,
Yeah,
dries, gets hard.
But
Let's just think of a
It's not gonna
shed
be-
that you find that's 3 years old.
okay,
You're going to tell me that is going to be harder to shoot through than one that just fell off its head?
no, if it's in velvet, I'm shooting right through it.
Not in velvet, just fell off its head.
It's still going to be hard, but it's getting
Compared
harder.
to a chalk antler.
Okay,
This is besides the point.
I was going to say that I don't
Not
think
really, because people are trying to say that it gets so chalk or that it's extreme, that the one that he's using is more dense and that it's not a good comparison.
that's not true.
Okay, then we got it. We got this then.
Okay.
This is wonderful. We live right. Our freaking shop is right next to a meat locker, and I guarantee you they probably have. We go over there and tell them, hey, next one, will you guys save the next one you butcher, save a shoulder for us, and we'll buy it.
Yeah, it was
And it'll be
just
fresh, and we should shoot them.
it was just great because it was funny that exactly what we've been saying, that you think just because you have a fixed blade and everything else that you
Gonna
can just
bust
be
through the
shooting at shoulders,
I am curious about
and that it's extremely stupid to be doing that.
That they weren't getting through it at all, though. I've watched other ones that.
The iron will did.
No, I know that, but I'm saying I've watched quite a few other videos that are that I don't. I mean, I'm just not a fixed blade fan in general, but that they get through like the same test. Is that an arrow difference? Like, was this dude shooting just his regular setup? Do you think, or
I don't have to go watch it again. But I mean, the first one, I think it was the design of the broadhead. It's one of those, it's a fix, but then it's like the blades go out and there's a gap in between.
oh yeah,
And so I think just structurally, it's not near as
oh yeah, I know what you're
sound
talking
as like an iron will, where the whole thing is.
So did the
solid.
iron will make it through and far enough, they believe, to penetrate the vitals?
Yeah, I mean, it was then into a target. So,
Oh,
I mean, you can.
but it went through.
It's not, but it got through.
Gotcha.
It got through. None of the others got through at all. That one did get through and was 7 inches, 8 inches into the target.
So the takeaway on that is don't shoot him in the shoulder with any broadhead.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, it just, and I'm not, Easton made the comment, he's not a fixed blade fan. I'm not against fixed blades. I shot fixed blades for a long time. I prefer expandables because they've been, I've relied on them and they've been extremely good to me. I've not had any issues with them. The only issues that I've ever had with a expandable broadhead personally is when I had something that I failed to do correctly, which was I had blood run into one and coagulated and it did not open. But that was because I took an arrow off that I had shot. I took a broadhead off of an arrow that I had shot something. I washed the arrow. I put it upside down or put it head down in my garage with a new broadhead on it, and it ran down in there and then hardened. The only time that I personally have been witness to something that failed as a broadhead was this past year. Easton had a failure of a mechanical broadhead. However,
And mine.
which one are you
My
talking?
deer that I would consider that a failure. that it glanced off his shoulder and came out right in front of his ass.
No,
That wasn't just,
I don't think glancing, because any broadhead can glance.
No, that was the specific one that you had it happen on does. Mom had it happen on does.
Yeah, that's
Warren
the
had it happen
hypodermic.
on does. Like, it was the worst broadhead I've ever seen.
Yes,
perform.
I mean, and I will.
It took a right turn.
Yes, but that's not a failure of the broad. I mean, not a failure mechanically, I guess is what I mean. Maybe I'm trying. I mean, that's not correct because we're talking about mechanical broadhead.
Open. It's a failure of the design.
Yes,
for sure.
But as far as I've shot expandables, I've shot fixed blades, and there's some great ones out there. I will say the only one that I will speak against, that I would tell you if you're shooting them, man, I would seriously look at changing, is the hypodermic. And it's only because of the design. And I believe, and I'm not a scientist, I can't say that I have scientific proof. What I have is hunting proof. What Warren is referring to is a deer he shot, and I had shot one, and then he shot another one, and these were not big, huge bucks or not big bulls, it was a doe, and it hit and glanced.
At a buck and a doe.
At a buck and a doe, and I shot a doe, and it did the same thing.
Well, I
the
shot
same
another
thing,
doe
too.
and glanced off the rib, and at that point I said, okay, I'm not.
Right.
It is the broadhead. I thought it was a 1 in a million type thing on the buck, and then after we had a couple more, I was like, nope, it's the
Right. It's the design of the broadhead.
Yeah.
And I believe, and again, I don't know, I believe it's the needle point on the hypodermic that is not getting itself going in the right direction. It immediately changes course as soon as it hits something. I've shot other Rage broadheads, the 3-blade, and I love it. I've never had any issues with it. I'm now shooting the Beast, and I like it even better.
And we're definitely off the road. We
back
probably
to
do
arrows.
need to.
The arrows, key things that you're looking for, what makes a difference in an arrow. If we're going to cover arrows real quick. Straightness tolerance, GPI, what else?
Those are all the specifications on it, but this is one that I don't think that you will see very much difference until you are to a point of experience level.
Agreed. I'm just saying, what are people paying for?
You're paying for the straightness tolerance, number
Straightness
one.
tolerance would be the one thing that I would look at.
You're going to see a plus or a minus on it, and it's going to say 0.001, or is it 3 zeros? Whatever it is, 0.001 or 0.005 is your most common ones. 0.00.
There's some over that, and that's where I would tell people that I probably would try to steer clear, even if it costs another $20-$30 for that dozen, to get something that is 0.005 or less. The number is less, meaning it's straighter, because the closer it gets to 0, the straighter it is.
Yeah, tolerance is just how much the manufacturer has the ability to go one way or another.
That it can have a defect of,
Yep.
I mean, it could be not quite as good.
0.001. The odds of you being able to outshoot that is
Pretty
1
much
in 1,000.
That's what I'm saying. 99% of the shooters would never be able to tell the difference between a .005 and a .001.
Yeah, I would tell you even probably between 0.005 and 0.008.
Maybe.
Most people aren't going to be able to. I would love to know what the aluminum shafts were. And there was guys shooting those really well, because I bet some of those were probably bent all the time.
I don't remember, but I do know I shot them for a long time, and yes, you bent the crap out. You. That's where you learn that when you are practicing to not shoot the same dot.
Yes.
Because if you smacked an arrow, it would put a dent in it.
Okay, so back for beginners. Your straightness tolerance is all you're paying for pretty much on arrows. The closer it is to 0, the more straight that arrow, and what that truly means, right, is that it comes back to that straightness, right? Mm-hmm. So let's try to keep this simple so that people can follow if they don't know what we're talking about here. So the closer to 0 it is, the straighter that arrow is going to be. I agree with Dad. Anything 0.005 and underneath, you're not going to notice. You're just fine. So if you find some arrows that are 0.003 to 0.005, don't be thinking, oh, these aren't going to be accurate. Your GPI, that stands for grains per inch. Okay, so that's going to be the total weight of your arrow. What you need to keep in mind there is they're not including your insert, your tip, or your knock. So,
or fletchings.
Which I know this confuses people, because then they do the math on their arrow and they're like, what in the world? My arrow is only 320 grains. I'm way too light. Well, it's because you're actually probably more like 450, because you have a 100 grain tip, you probably have a 25 grain insert, and then you probably have a 4 or 5 grain knock. maybe 3. So
unless you're shooting lighted knocks, then you got another 20.
There you go. So that is things to keep in mind, really, that I don't know with arrows that there's a whole lot of other things that they can do. I do think there's some differences in like durability and toughness, but that's ultimately at the end of the day, what you're paying for is straightness tolerance, and then how to know roughly what your weight's going to be is going to be your GPI. And that is going to be off of how long you cut your arrows. So I would tell you anything in a 10 GPI is going to be a heavy arrow. 8 is probably going to be where most of us would like to end up. That's going to put you, if you have an average draw length, in like the 400 to 450 range, which I feel as though is a good
somewhere in that
weight.
7 point something to 9 point something is where the average.
I know all your
fall.
guys' specs off the top of my head. Yours is like
8.1.
8.1 something, and Warren's come in around 418 to 420, I believe. Dad's is 7 to 8. It's the Gold Tip 100 Pros, but you're right at 400 or right. Yeah, I think you're right between 4 and 410. Okay, 412. And mine is mine's 480, 470 or 480 with the Kinetic Chaoses.
Yeah, and you're like what, 10.4 or something?
Yeah, they are 10.4. Yep.
So
which is like the heaviest. I didn't even intend on doing that. I just keep the arrows because they don't break.
And the only relevance that this has to your sight is going to be your pin gap. Okay, the heavier your arrow, the bigger gap you're going to have. The lighter your arrow, the tighter gap you're going to have.
So we've done it for all the others. A few recommendations for arrows. One set that you would get that would last you for a very long time, and they're not going to break the bank terribly, but they're good arrows, is the Gold Tip Hunters. Now, they have the Gold Tip Hunters are nice because you can do the Hunters, the Hunter Pros, or the others. They're pretty much whatever you want to pay for. One's a little bit nicer than the next, basically. I think you have your Hunter that is your good, your Hunter XT that is better, and then your Hunter Pros that are best. And so you could go get those very easily. They're good arrows. They're going to last you a while.
That's the one other thing that it changes on your arrows is diameter.
Yeah, yep, and they are standard size shafts, so they're going to be your normal arrow. I say that because everything now is getting smaller and smaller.
You don't have to be shooting a micro diameter shaft. Don't let someone talk you into the, oh my gosh, you got to have this. It's just another variation. It's just another, and then the other side of that is you don't have to have a Lincoln log because you want to go shoot 3D shoots and you want to cover the most area or whatever.
What would be the benefits of a micro diameter?
Speed.
Penetration.
Penetration is what they say. It's less arrow shaft following that broadhead.
And less wind drift.
Less wind drift, yes.
Yep. So your Hunter Pros are good, awesome arrows.
I love mine. I've been shooting Hunter Pros for probably 20 years, and there might have been a 3 or 4 year break in there where I tried some others. I shot the one that and it's not that it's a bad arrow, but the Carbon Express Maxima, aren't the Carbon Express make the Maxima red? Hold on, I'm just asking a question. Is that correct? Yeah. Yes. The only reason I didn't like that arrow shaft is because it was red. And so when you shot it, when you shot it into an animal, you couldn't see blood on the arrow. That was I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So my point is, that's why I don't shoot those anymore. I didn't like the red.
Which I think is a fair point.
Yep.
Like,
can't see blood on it.
I shoot the airstrikes, and I think it's going to be pretty hard for me to change. It's a very balanced arrow, in my opinion. Like, it's a mix between your standard size shaft and a micro diameter. It's you can adjust the weight if you want to. You can add there's little screw-in deals that you can adjust, add to the half out, which is it's like an insert basically, and so you can change it in 10 grain increments. So if you want to be 430, just screw one of those on there, and now you've got a 430 grain arrow.
You can do it with just about all of their arrows.
Well, I think it's sweet, and then and they fly great. And the one thing I will say about Gold Tips is like their tagline of "damn tough" is true, because I've had, for whatever reason, every once in a while just have some malfunctions, and I've put a few in our neighbor's cement wall, and had a couple break, but several live, which I have no idea how, because you're talking about 75 pounds. 28.5-inch draw length straight in the cement.
300 feet a second.
That's pretty freaking impressive.
Blast in a concrete wall and go pick it up and shoot it again. Now
I will say our raised knocks usually don't live through that one.
Yeah, that's something that I
haven't
would
seen a knock that looks like that one.
I would tell someone that if you're not shooting a lighted knock, though, I would spend the extra money to be shooting one. They are going to be that helpful to you in hunting, in setup, and everything. The other thing that I would tell someone is understanding how to check an arrow, because so many people I don't think have any clue how to check an arrow. And if you can't see this podcast right now, I got a fly swatter here. But after you'd have something like what Warren's talking about, you hit something solid. It could even be you make a good shot on a 3D target, but it hits that insert
metal rod.
the metal rod, and you hear it.
This is a big safety thing. Like
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
much more than just knowing your setup or like wanting to be particular. This is huge safety.
But a carbon shaft is designed to take a hit straight on. It's not designed to take something from the side. So if something hits a carbon shaft from the side, it's probably going to splinter. But if it hits straight on, it should be able to, like what Warren's talking about, you hit the concrete wall. What you want to do is walk over and take that arrow and bend it. And yes, you can bend a carbon shaft. That's what we were just talking about with the tolerances, is that they are supposed to come back. Because an arrow shaft, if you actually see it in slow motion, and if you haven't, look it up on YouTube, there's some stuff out there showing you an arrow. When it takes off, it bends and flexes all kinds of ways. But you do the same thing with the shaft. You bring it back and you kind of bend it back and forth and listen for any kind of cracking going on. If you hear anything or if you feel anything, I mean, even just like, oh, that wasn't much, get rid of that shaft, because the chances are that shaft could blow up in your hand when it goes off coming out of the bow the next time. So make sure, for those of you that don't know, or you're helping someone, make sure you're showing them how to check a shaft, because you don't want that thing. I personally have met people that have had that happen where it went through their hand. I know there's going to be some smart-ass comment about a shaft. Freaking dipsticks.
Okay.
I didn't say anything. I didn't even give you a look.
It's the giggling.
He
Should
giggled.
Should we talk about the topic now? On to the sighting in your bow. Okay. Where do we start? We should start about sight selection first.
It's easy. You want a multi-pin sight and start at 10 yards, shoot it, set it at 20 if you're shooting anything over probably 45 pounds. You if you're 45, maybe 50, but if you're shooting that kind of poundage, you're probably not going to need a 0 to 10. You're going to be able to go to 20 yards and be able to use that 20-yard pin all the way to there, and then 10-yard increments after that. And multi-pins, I am firmly against we will argue on this one, I'm firmly against the single pin for hunting, because I've seen so many people make mistakes. Either they forgot to dial it back after shooting it, which I did because I tried one for a while, and then you shoot over or under something because you don't have that sight dialed back. The other thing is you got to know exactly what yardage that is and dial that sight to it to be able to shoot it correctly. Now, Easton he's shooting fast enough, Warren might be as well, that he gets away with like 0 to 30 without adjusting anything.
There's a time and a place for it, and I'll argue that on every day, but I will also argue with you on that's not the ideal sight for most people. But okay, so what are you referring to a multi-pin?
Well, at least 3 pins.
Do you want me to elaborate on that?
Well, aren't you shooting a 3-pin now?
I shoot a 3-pin now, yeah.
So what caused you to change?
My 1-pin, I had one issue with it in 6 years. That was me, that I forgot it. And then, to be honest with you, they hadn't made a left-handed 3-pin yet. Like, I couldn't get a left-handed 3-pin from anybody at least anybody that I wanted to try. And then when Trophy Ridge came out with their one, they finally did, where they had the 2 pins and then the 1 floater. I didn't like the all 3 one way, or the ones where they have them where it's like stacked in 1 pin.
Yep.
I didn't like that. So then I tried the 3-pin and I freaking love it. I don't know if I'll potentially ever change from that. Except for target shooting. I love my 1-pin for target shooting.
Okay. So typically your option is going to be a single pin, a 3-pin, a 5-pin, or even in some cases a 7-pin. I do believe there is arguments for single pins. One, there's some people who have bad eyes, and they have explained to me that they have a hard time that the pins, even on a 3-pin, all runs together, and they have a hard time being able to see, which in that case you might need some other things like a clarifier that will help you keep your pins more clear. But I can understand that. I've also heard people who have target panic really bad, that one pin helps them focus, that they don't have they don't get so distraught when they have only one pin. So those could be arguments for it. In our opinion, it is not the ideal hunting site because, if you're in an Easton scenario or something or you're a super tall guy and you've got a 31-inch draw length and you're pulling 80 pounds, you might be able to pretty much shoot one pin all the way out to 40 yards. And I could see that because now it almost may be more beneficial for you to only have one pin because your pin gap would be so tight that it would be hard to see them.
Right.
But for us normal people who aren't basketball players, then you're a single pin. The issues that we see with that is, let's say you set it at 30 yards. Well, now you have to keep that in mind when you have something at 15 yards. I'm using a 30-yard pin, and so now you have to force yourself to aim at the very bottom of the animal or maybe even slightly off of the animal, which is going to be hard to get yourself to do, especially in an adrenalized situation. Or if he's 40, you now have to make yourself hold a little bit high. And we just believe anything that where you're having to force yourself to think that much in a situation like that where your heart is pumping does not help your odds, or it could get bumped, or you could forget it. You had it set at 50 or 20 or whatever, and now it just leaves lots more room for error.
And the error is large error too, typically, if you're not shooting very fast. So
I think what seems like I hear more of it than anything is someone sets it, they shoot over top. They forget
or
that. Or
just wherever they shot the last time.
They shot something at a long distance, and then they've never dialed it back, and then they're hunting, and it's 20 yards, and whoosh, it's set for 50, and way over it goes.
Yep. You have 3-pin, which in my opinion is the best hunting site that you could have because 99% of us aren't shooting past, well, probably 80%, unfortunately, realistically, aren't shooting past 40. So that gives you 20, 30, and 40, and you don't have the extra pins to see. And then you can get options where you can get sites that will still dial down, just like a single pin. So you can shoot out to, you can practice out to 100 if you want to. That's what I shoot personally. It's what Easton shoots, and I think you still have a 5-pin though, don't you?
I'm shooting a 5-pin.
Okay, or you can go to Dad where you have just a fixed 5-pin. And they do make movable 5-pins as well.
They do?
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask this question, because when Trophy Ridge first came out with their React 3, I think is what they called it, or React Trio, the 2 pins, you had 2 fixed pins and then the 3rd pin, but the whole thing moved is what you adjusted, not the 3rd pin.
The whole housing moves.
Does someone make one where just the 3rd pin moves?
No, because why would you do that?
Because that way my 20 and 30 were set all the time, never moved. That's why I got away from the Trio, because I was having to adjust. I was messing up my 20 and 30 by trying to dial my 40 down to 50. You see, you had to remember to put it back, or my 20's off.
I think the issue you'd have, though, is where's the pin going to go?
That's what I don't.
The other thing is, technically, Warren would tell you. I think, explain this to me if I'm wrong, but he tested this freaking crap because he's like, I think that if I move my pin down a little bit, then if I'm at 33, then really what I did is just dialed my 30-yard pin to 33. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If you dialed to like 50 yards, you could just go back on your 10-yard increments. So you have a 50, a 40, and a 30-yard pin now.
I understand that, but you wouldn't have a 20.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty small reason not to have the Trio when it gives you such versatility. Most people are going to remember when they're not commonly shooting a further distance to move their pin back.
I think the issue you'd have with yours is I don't know how you... I feel like somebody does have something similar to that, though. Don't quote me on it, but I do think somebody has something similar to that.
One
Dad's going to say, I want to make it.
I want someone will send us a picture. I thought someone was making one too, but what I'm looking for is a 20 and 30 that stays set all the time. And just that 3rd pin goes from 40 out to whatever I want it to, but that's the only thing that's moving. It's just that.
In what instance do you think that you're going to be in a position where you have to go from 70 to back to 20?
I wouldn't have to go 70 back to 20. I would have to go 70 back to 40.
I think it's such a niche. Like it's such a small amount of people that.
Well, I'm just.
I've never heard anybody that are shooting 3 pins ever like that. You're the only person I've ever heard complain about that part about a 3-pin.
I don't like it.
Okay, so 5-pin is the probably traditional standard hunting sight. And I think
we went over some of the ones to get on that.
Right,
too.
and I think one of the things that I want to clarify on that is I'm only hunting with 3 pins, 20, 30, and 40. I'm using my 50 and 60 to shoot further distances on the range.
right.
Doesn't a 3-pin make the most freaking sense then for you?
No, because then I can't practice at I
can.
practice at longer ranges. No, then I got to remember to move my sight back, and I made that mistake. I'm never making that mistake again.
Oh my
Give
goodness.
me 5 pins. You can laugh.
That
You
is
could
funny.
say whatever you want. You're wrong.
No, you're not wrong. I'm not wrong.
Have
It's
you
it's
ever missed a
preference.
deer because you had the wrong sight?
I
Used
have.
the wrong pin?
You used the wrong pin and missed deer too before
No,
on a
I have
5-pin.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you have.
Where?
Drop time.
You're still saying that, and I did not use the wrong pin. I just missed the deer.
Well, you shot over his back, so and then you shot your bow and it was on.
Yeah.
So the only justifiable explanation is one of two things: you used the wrong pin, or you didn't
Aimed
look
at the
through your
sky.
peep.
I may not have looked through my peep because I know that I didn't use the wrong pin.
Okay.
Anyways.
Well, but I will say, so Trophy Ridge goes green, red, green, red, green, red, and I could see how in an adrenalized situation
You hit one.
you
color.
accidentally put your 50 instead of the 30, and you're 24 inches high. So 5-pin, if you don't want to have anything movable, you're afraid you're going to forget that you moved it, but you want to still be able to practice out to 50 to 60, that's a great option. The last one would be a 7-pin. In my opinion, I would personally recommend don't go with a 7-pin. It's just way too much going on in your sight housing, and especially if you're new. Okay, so now we've discussed options. The second part of all this, Dad, I think, skipped a few steps. It's not as simple as going out on your range and just shooting, because what you need to keep in mind, especially for those of you who have bought or have decided, David Harrison, that you're going to upgrade your sight. The first thing that you need to be doing before you go and shoot is you need to check your second and third axis. Because if you are a good shot and you don't have those on, you are going to be utterly confused.
You're going to be fighting your sight.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to sight your bow in at 20, you're going to shoot great, and you're going to shoot at 40, and you're going to be a little right. And you're going to be like, oh, it's me. So then you're going to fix it at 40. And then you're going to be
a little off at
a
20.
little right at 60, and you're like, what the hell? But then you're the other way
at 20.
because your sight's like this, and you're like, what in the frick is going on?
That's a good note.
And and then it will be in your head, well, I'm left at 20 and I'm right at 60, I'm doing something. When in fact, you just didn't take the time to set your axes. Okay, now
Not all sites have it, but
correct.
But
If you go into a mid-grade one, it's going to have at least a second axis adjustment. And I can't ever remember which is which, so don't ask me that. But on your third axis, which I believe is the one is basically like, for those of you listening, tilting left and right, which I believe is your second, but don't quote me. And then your third is when you have the sight at an angle, meaning that you are facing
Pivoting.
Yes, you're facing
In or out?
down,
downhill,
which I believe is your third. Pivoting in or out, down or up, it will not be in line. So you could have your second axis on, and your third axis could be off at an angle. And this one is where I think a lot of people could get killed, especially bow hunters, because you don't realize that it's off because you shoot on flat ground most of the time. And then you have an instance where you're in a tree stand and you shoot and your third axis is way off and you are 4 inches right or left or whatever the instance is, and you make a bad shot. And the way that you check that one is just simply if you have a bow vise or anything like that, you make sure your second axis is on and it's level, and then you're going to pivot it at a steep angle up or down. And if it comes off of level, you need to fix that axis. Now, if anybody listening knows them exact, feel free to correct me. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I just know if I got a sight that's got both, I need to check both.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
You know what each one does, at least.
Yes.
And if you don't have any of that equipment, go to the archery shop. Make sure that they set that sight prior to sticking it on your bow. I mean, and if you can afford that kind of sight, I would definitely make sure that you take the time to set them. Don't buy a sight that you can move the second and third axis and you don't take the time to do it, because most of the time they don't come set. They don't come ready. So you're going to want to do that.
Make a note. We're going to do a video on how to set your second and third axis without tools and without having to go to a bow shop.
Okay. So second, third axis, we've checked that part. I would tell you now, just to make sure that you're on the target, a little trick that I can't remember who taught me this, but I always thought it was pretty slick. If you just hold your bow level, this really helps if you have a bow vise or a wife that can hold it level for 2 minutes, and you can stand behind it, make sure that the bow is level, and you can line up your string in the center of the riser, and then your pins will, if they're in line, you're going to be close, meaning string, riser, pins. If it's way left or way right, you need to move the sight to where it's in line with your string, and then you're going to be very, very close. I mean, it's not going to be like, you're not going to be center of the dot, but you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm
not going to miss the target.
Yeah.
For any of you rifle guys, it's like being able to look down your barrel and at least get close. Match your sights to where your barrel's pointing.
Kind of bore sight.
And God forbid, you're not trying to shoot 50 yards on your first arrow. Shoot 10 yards. You let the ego go and just stand there at 10 yards and make sure that you are hitting the target before you even back up to 20. I can't tell you how many freaking guys, I think it's hilarious. It's not guys, it's young boys. It's most of the time it's not women, not female. They don't do it. They're willing to shoot 10 yards, but you'll get a kid that is like, everyone else is shooting 20. I'll stand here at 20. One goes off the target, another one goes off the target, and now you're trying to figure out where it went so you can try to adjust it.
Okay. So we're starting at 10 yards. First pin that we're getting set. 20-yard pin. And how are we getting, and any suggestions on how to get that set correctly?
Well, don't forget, number one, when you are moving your pin, the easiest thing you can remember is follow your arrow. So meaning if you are shooting high, you move it up. If you're shooting low, you move it down. If you're shooting right, you move it right. Very easy to remember. Follow your arrow. But when you're shooting at 20 yards, the biggest tip for me, I think, is you shoot 10 yards because it's going to tell you what you're going to hit at 20 yards. So shoot 10 yards and make your adjustments. If you're way the heck left, you're way the heck right, get your adjustments way high, way low. You want to be a little high at 10 yards. And then go shoot 20, like a couple inches high at 10 yards is going to give you pretty dang close at 20. And then you're going to be way closer right there.
Yep.
And the other one, because Easton just said if you're way left at 10 yards or you're way right at 10 yards. If you shoot two arrows and one is left and one is right, don't move your sight yet. You're doing something wrong. You're doing, and that's the one thing that new archers, I think, do fall into. You try to correct yourself without correcting the bow. You try to, so you don't want to do that. You want to aim that pin at the dot the same way you aimed it at the dot the last time.
They try
to like compensate a little bit. They'll lean over or they'll do something. They'll change something because they don't know what they're doing. They just know it didn't hit where they wanted to. And so what you want to do is the same thing over and over again. And hopefully all your arrows are either all left or they're all right or they're all low or high, and then adjust the pin because that's the big thing we see at camp, trying to tell those kids, hey, a kid will shoot 3 arrows and they're in a group like this, but they're low left and he's discouraged. He's like, I can't hit the target. Dude, this is perfect. We can adjust that. It would be more concerning if one was below the dot, one was above the dot, on the left, on the right, all over the place. Then that's an issue.
Yeah, consistent. Okay, the one thing I would add to that, so we've set our second and third axis. We now have made sure we're in the ballpark. Your 20-yard pin, start with your housing, okay? And what I mean by that is that you don't want to be taking the individual pin and moving that way down or moving that way up. You want to move your housing. One, if you're shooting an adjustable sight, you want to make sure that that's at the top, meaning that you have your dial all the way up. Otherwise, you're going to figure that out at some point, and you're either going to have to be okay with losing the adjustment, or you're going to realize I've totally screwed up this entire thing, and you got to restart. Mm-hmm. So you need to start with 20. You need to move, meaning if you're low, you need to move one dial. If we have a dial, we're moving the dial all the way up. Now, step 2, if we're low, we're taking the housing, moving the housing up. Okay, and if you don't know what the difference is in the two, housing is the entire sight bracket
where all your pins are sitting inside of.
Yes, and the individual pins, some of them will have an adjustment where you can move those individually. So moving the whole housing up until we are on.
We are correcting him on that, though, because you just said it backwards.
Yeah, sorry.
If you're shooting low, you are going to move your sight low. Follow the arrow all the time.
Yep. So now once you have your housing where it needs to be, now you can go to 30 or 40, and what you're going to have to do then is move the pins. Okay, now if you have a React system, it will do this for you. But if you don't, which probably 80% of you don't, then you're going to be moving those pins individually. Onto
You're basically making a baseline with your 20-yard pin. Is always the baseline for everything, and that is the one that you get it set and don't have to move it.
Exactly.
Everything else flows from your 20-yard pin. If that one isn't set good, you're not going to be good at the rest.
Correct.
So your 20-yard pin is your closest, but also your most important.
Yes.
And so let me add one thing. So if you're shooting 20 yards and you're close, you're hitting pretty good around that dot, that's all I'm really looking for at that point. If I feel like I've got a pretty good form down and everything, because 40, when I get to 30 and 40, or like I said, even practicing at 50, that's going to truly tell me if I'm left or right. I'm going to get a better longer flight out of that arrow, and then I'll come back and start fine adjusting the entire housing to get that, because a slight adjustment at 40 will be a minuscule adjustment at 20.
Only left and right.
Only left and right, correct.
20, you need to make sure that you have your 20 hitting a penny.
Yes.
As far as up and down
with
that housing, so you don't have to mess with the housing anymore. Agreed on the left and right there. So now that we've got that, if you are shooting an adjustable sight, which I would say probably most people now are getting adjustable sights,
Yeah.
then is what you're going to do at that point. At least this I found for me it works really well. So I would shoot 30, same thing, and this is if you have a 3-pin. I'd shoot 30 and 40 like 20, where I'm making sure that those pins are height-wise, I'm very confident in where they're hitting, and if I feel tired or something, I may wait a day or two and shoot again and make sure that I'm still on before I
make an adjustment,
start moving forward. But then is what I do personally is I put a blank tape on my sight, okay, or a piece of athletic tape, and where this will lose you because you don't have to do it, but for the rest of you is where I think this makes your life really easy. Is if you're having to guess on the tape, you might go through several tapes. If you use a blank one and you shoot 50 and 60 and 70, I just then make a mark on where so let's say I dial down to 60 and I'm a little bit low at 60. Now is what I do is instead of having to say have a tape on there and then move it to 63, I just move the dial down a little bit and until I'm dead center, and then I mark it on the blank tape. And I do the same at 70 and I mark it. And I do the same at 80 and I mark it. And then what I do is I shoot that for a few days. Then once I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely dialed, now I will take a real tape, find the one that matches
Does it come with
and
the
then
sight?
put that on there. Yep. Sometimes, honestly, I've end up not even doing it because I get it's so dialed in that
you leave your tape on there.
Yeah.
I've probably used a 1-pin the longest at this point. I've never put a sight tape on mine, ever once.
Well, the React had LEDs though too. Those
Yeah, but I put
indicators.
my own marks.
Yeah.
With a Sharpie. Probably because theirs was like a sticker, and I didn't want some BS sticker on it.
Well,
So
that's what I found last year. Is it the black gold one has a little triangle indicator,
Yeah.
and you could draw on it.
Oh,
And
nice.
so then it made it where it was so precise. It sounds not precise, but it's unbelievably precise because it's just filling it in like coloring, like a coloring book. So you make sure that your indicator is perfectly in line with it, and it's dead on.
Your guys saying that brings, I have to say this, and this actually does not fit in this podcast at all, other than it could be the site as well. I've done it forever. When you put stuff on your bow, outline it with a Sharpie. Meaning when you put a rest on, outline it with a Sharpie. When you put your sight on, outline it with a Sharpie. Why? Because one, if you go on a trip where you got to take that off, like you're traveling with your bow or your sight, you know when you put it back on that it's in exactly the same spot. Or if something were to happen and you just happen to look down and your sight fell off or your rest fell off or your rest got bumped and you're like, what the heck, it got bumped. Now you're either going home, you can't hunt anymore, or you could bring it back, tighten it back down, and you're good to go.
Yeah,
That's freaking funny.
I take a picture of all of where my sight adjustments are, where everything is.
I mark everything. I never outline. I'm just thinking about when you take everything off. You go sell that bow. There's just all these freaking drawings.
You
on
just
your
take
bow.
if you want to sell the bow, you just wipe it off with acetone, and it's gone.
That's gonna
take the paint off too.
Yeah.
You don't use that much.
I don't outline the entire thing. I just do a little line.
Yeah.
That way I know if it's off the line or not. And then on like my site, like the exact numbers and everything, I take a picture of those, because if I change something, then then I'm gonna have multiple marks.
Yeah, well, there's the other one. It just depends on the site or whatever. You can make a mark like a cross.
You're Pop's son.
Like from a screw to that, and you make that mark. And if it isn't touching, then you know something got adjusted.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, if you changed a few things, you'll end up with having to get a new site because you have too many Sharpie marks.
No, I've never had that happen.
Okay, so onward from there, now you get everything close. In my opinion, this would be the biggest thing that I think applies to expert archers, to everybody, is quit moving your freaking sight so much. Go out and shoot for a day and shoot 10, those first 10, 15 arrows should be all you care about. If those are on, then leave it. And then if you start shooting right after arrow number 50 or 60, it's probably because you're tired. And people move it. Then the next day they shoot fresh again, and now they're left. Then they move that, and then they start shooting right again. They move it back, and then they get all in their own head. So don't do that. And I used to be the king of this. So don't do that. Shoot. Only worry about your first couple arrows, and then is what I do is, and then I take, like, I'll take notes on everything. Because me personally, I want to know that when I take my bow out starting in August and September, that
it's ready.
I could hit
100% ready.
I can hit the hair on a fly's ass, and that I am so confident in the bow that I know exactly everything is perfect, and I haven't. So my goal is by August 1, I want to have not had to move that sight for at least 3 weeks. That's my goal, meaning that every time my first cold arrow is within an inch, out at 40, which is my effective range, and no more than an inch left, right, up, or down. And then so then what I start doing is I first do, I only care about the first 10 arrows, then I only care about the first 5, then 1 shot a day, and I'll shoot more than that, but I only care about the first one, and I'll take a note on those. And Monday I was a little left, and I'll take note of the wind and everything too.
I was going to say there's 2 things that become a factor in that, because I dealt with it, and one is wind. If you're a guy that you have to practice outside, backyard, whatever, and you live in a place where the wind blows hard, you need to make sure that you're not adjusting, because you could come back the next day and readjust.
And it doesn't take as much wind as you think, especially depending upon how the wind direction. Like if you have a perfect crosswind, 3-4 miles an hour is going to move your arrow. It may not be a ton, but I'll bet you a 4 to 5 mile an hour crosswind at 40 yards will move your arrow 3 inches.
What?
A 4 to 5 mile an hour crosswind.
I think it would take a little more of that.
100%. And I will also say that if you'd like to change that, let me know, and I can help you with your fletching setup.
Well, here's the thing. I can tell you that
you're talking a straight crosswind on those fletchings.
Yeah, 3 to 4 miles an hour is about what we have.
4 to 5.
Or 4 to 5
is about what we have every 10 miles
single day.
An hour or more.
My arrow ain't moving.
I think we should get a hooter shooter and we should measure it.
We're gonna use my new wind calculator too.
Okay.
Well, I'm referring to the fact that when we lived in Great Falls, Montana, it was windy all the time. And that was a 15, 20 mile an hour wind. I would guess shooting at the archery range that was up on a big plain right underneath the airport. I mean, big wide open, meaning there's hardly any trees. And so what I would have to do is go down and find buildings to shoot between on windy days, because I could not get my bow dialed in, especially if you're trying to sight something in. You put something new on your bow or whatever, to get it all right, you got to have no wind. And the other one is something that a lot of you may be dealing with out there, and it may not be in a workout form, but I found that working out the same tired thing that Warren's talking about after shooting 50 arrows, you can have that same effect from one day to the next. If you did bench press and arms and everything or whatever on a day and you go shoot your bow, you will shoot it differently than the day that you've had rest. And so keep in mind, if you are doing something, I'm saying if you're a guy that works out, you better think seriously about adjusting your workouts when you get into hunting season so that you shoot consistently. Or if you go do something, it could be you're roping cows or you're freaking hanging steel or you're doing something work-wise that is out of the norm, and then you go shoot your bow that evening 4 hours later and you can't figure out why you're shooting left. It could be that it was something you did that day.
I will say, for all the workout guys out there, I think that's just a lucky gene that those two got, because I thought the same thing. I used to work out a lot too. I know I'm a skinny beanpole, everything, but I did work out every day, and I did see some results. And these two grow so fast. I never once had an issue with my bow shooting differently. And I think that's probably because a normal human being doesn't really change that much in a day.
That would mean you're not lifting hard enough.
Dude, I put on 20 pounds.
But it's fatigue. It's not.
Yeah, but that was only 10 pounds on each side.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
benching.
you guys are not doing that only when you're. The whole thing about that is not fatigue only. It is the changing your body. Like you guys are him. That's what he explained. Our whole entire growing up was about how not only was it fatigue, but also when you go from 1 week to the next and you've been working out and your body has changed some in the next week, that you're going to shoot differently. You may have a different anchor point a little bit that you don't pay attention to. And that's what I'm referring to, that most people don't grow by thinking.
I believe personally it's fatigue.
It's more fatigue. But he's right, though, that you can change. Same with someone who goes on a diet. You're going to shoot your bow differently if you're 50 pounds lighter than you were last month or 2 months later or whatever, because things change.
Yeah, well, that's why I take notes, because when I go out and shoot that first arrow, my notes are what was the weather conditions, and I will do sunny or cloudy, because I do think that makes somewhat of a difference in your pins. Like when your pins are not 100% clear, for me, I shoot about an inch low, and I think that it's because of the blur. Where the true center is of the pin is actually a little bit different. So I take a note on that. I take a note on how I felt. Like if I felt like I was shooting super good, I take notes on the wind direction and the speed, and then I note exactly where my first 1 through 5 arrows hit and the distance. And then once I have those, so then I can look back and say, okay, well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I was 3 inches left every single day.
Time to move.
Then I move it. And then I make sure and then I usually get to a point where I don't have to touch my sight, and you will have days where I shot today and I was 2 inches right, and you're going to want to move it because every freaking shot is right, but then you come back the next day, dead on, and then the next day, dead on, and the next day left 2 inches, and it's just you. So
agreed.
To me, that is the best way I can really build my confidence and know that my bow itself is dialed.
And there'll be a day when you should just not shoot, meaning you'll shoot an arrow and it's not where it was supposed to be, or you shoot 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden the wheels fall off before they ever even were put on, basically. And you'll recognize those days. That's farther into what we're talking about, but there will be a day you just go hang your bow up and come back tomorrow.
Yeah. And the only other thing I think we forgot to talk about is your pin sizes. So typically you have 29 thousandths, 19 thousandths, and 10 thousandths. 19 thousandths would be the most popular and
Where do you see
standard.
29 thousandths?
Oh, you can get 29 thousandths on almost all of them.
Really?
Yep.
I don't think I've ever even seen one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those.
Unless it's ancient.
No,
all
a
the
lot of those
Campos
camp bows are.
29,000s.
They're big, so the kids can see them easy, and they're not looking. They don't assume that they're going to be shooting much farther than 20 yards.
Wow. I didn't even know they sold them that big.
So that's the size of your pin. The smaller your pin, the more accurate you can be, because the more precise you can be on the pin location. 29 thousandths I would not recommend unless you plan on only shooting really close or you have terrible vision. Then 29 thousandths might be a good option. 19 thousandths is standard for the average bow hunter that wants to be able to see their pins well and isn't too concerned about things. you're going to be just fine, especially 20 and 30. They do make a few sites now. I don't know if everybody can do it or just Trophy Ridge that are 19 thousandths on your 3 pins, 19 thousandths at 20, 19 thousandths at 30, and then 10 thousandths at your 40 or your pin that you can dial. That's really nice because as you get out to your farther distances, 60, 70, 80, 90 yards, the bigger your pin is, the more that's going to take up on what you're aiming at. So for me, if you have got pretty good vision and you're really concerned about accuracy and precision, I would be recommending a 10 thousandths. That's what I shoot on all my pins are all 10 thousandths.
Yeah, if I could have it my way, my 20 and 30 would be 10 thousandths too. I hate 19 thousandths.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either.
I shot that forever until I realized how much I like it 10 thousandths. So 19 is very good to start with.
For if you're an older person out there just getting started and your vision's not great, mine's not great anymore, but I still am using the 1,000, the 10 thousandths. I don't go 19. I can still see those pins. So my point is that you could still do that. You just have to see what your vision, but I do know you don't have to have perfect vision to be able to shoot that small of a pin.
Yep. Should we talk about real fast what sites we're each shooting and why?
Yeah, we can. I don't have one right now. I'm in between. I was shooting the React Trio, and I'm sorry, it's not supposed to be a bash, but I hate it with a burning passion for the sake of how loud and how freaking heavy it is. It is over a pound that is sitting on my bow, and it is excessively loud. I used to think it was...
That flies on your hat.
I thought it was the bows that I was shooting for a long time.
Got that sucker. Get him.
You know how hard it is?
Hell yeah. For those of you that were watching, I just got that one off Warren's head. Hello.
It is very difficult to shoot a bow that is that loud, and then I realized it's the sight. So I don't like that. I just bought a B3... Oh, I'd have to look at the freaking name again. It's a B3 3-pin. I bought it used because I don't know what I want to try yet, or what I wanted to get yet. But it's also a 3-pin. It also moves. It's significantly lighter, and I'm about to throw that on my bow here in the next week or two to try it. So
that's a 3-pin with a slider?
Yep, but the only difference is all 3 pins are horizontal versus one being vertical.
Yep. You?
I'm shooting the React 5-pin. And I agree with Easton. If there's a downfall to it, maybe not so much the weight. I don't mind the weight because I feel like the weight helps me hold my bow a little steadier.
Yours aren't heavy.
It's still heavy.
Yeah, the 5 pins, though, are not over a pound. I've weighed all of them.
All right. Well, it's still heavier than an average sight, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it is loud. It does make noise. And so I fight listening to my bow because I don't like that. I'm not a big target shooter. I'm not a guy that goes and shoots a lot of competitions or anything like that. I mainly want to kill stuff. And so you want it quiet. However, the sight has been so good as far as setting it up and getting my 20, 30, 40 dialed so easily and so accurately. I can micro adjust that pin that I'll give up the loudness because it works so well. I mean, so I'll deal with it.
The other downfall you're going to see with every Trophy Ridge sight is the moment you pull it out of the box, get glue and put it on the freaking level. Like no other. And it's still going to come off at some point, so you may as well buy another level so that when you lose it in the field, you can put another one on.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
I don't either, but I think just about everyone has fallen off other than what Easton's talking about. I do, as soon as I get my sight, I take goat tough, put it on the end of a toothpick, and I run a bead of glue right at the bottom on both sides of the level. And then I have had ones that never have come off, but I think it's because I added the glue.
Yeah.
Which one do you?
I shoot the black gold. I think it's the Ascent. It's a 3-pin, and it's a movable pin. And I like it. The thing I really like about it is they have that little dome on the top that actually changes with the sun.
Yeah. UV protector or whatever, isn't it? Or it's supposed to dim your...
Yes, like it. So your pins stay way more clear. Like if you ever had on bright sunny days, your pins are blown out, or maybe they're super clear. Whatever it is for you, that thing on the top adjusts
Turns purple.
Yeah, and then it opens up when it's darker so that you have more light to your pins. And I really, really like that because it helps me keep my pins clear. I like everything about the sight except for the fact that it doesn't have micro adjustment. So the next one, I'm going to get the same sight, but I'm going to get it with all micro adjustment.
Do they have to custom make that for you?
They're going to, well, for the one I want with 3 pins and 10,000s, yes. Which
You got all 3 and 10,000s?
I'm going to be, yes.
Is this something they would do for anybody?
Yeah, I think so.
That is something that I would note if you guys are looking to get into more advanced sites. Is a company that is willing to build it kind of how you want to.
Yeah.
But
Well, because
so you're getting it in micro adjust. You can get it in micro adjust now.
they make one that is already micro adjust, but
Oh.
it wasn't 10,000s, I don't think. So I can't remember what it was. There was a few things that I wanted that they didn't offer that I'm having to make it that way. And that is the only thing I will say that is a little, I was a little surprised by when I bought that sight. I mean, I think I paid like $300 or $350 for it.
You're not cheap.
I was expecting to have micro adjustment on a $350 sight, and it doesn't have it at all. Not on your windage, not on your pins, nothing. Which to me was a little bit,
That's
like
kind
I
of
said, I'm
crappy.
kind of like, how is it $350 sight not have micro adjust? Anyways, the one I'm going to get, I think is going to be like $450 or something, but it does have micro adjust on everything, and the reason I'm willing to pay that is because for me it's the perfect sight.
That's unreal expensive. Holy cow!
All the dialed ones are like 600, and
Yeah, I think
Ultra V's
I
are
think
like
you're-
600.
I think you're getting bent over on those. I mean, that there's not even an ounce of technology in them. It's just freaking assembled parts.
Well, I like that sight. I know that if it had the micro adjustments on everything that I wanted, it's worth it, and that'll be the sight I shoot. So
Maybe we need to get into making a site that doesn't freaking make you save up for a year just to buy an untechnological advanced thing.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was $450. I think.
You could tape
That's ridiculous.
toothpicks to your bow and it would work.
Yeah, it would work.
I used to paint my own sights. That's how long.
We've come a little further than that.
Yeah, I had glow
You
in the
still
dark
do
paint.
with Sharpie.
No, but I had to paint the tips of them. What are we waiting for?
Him.
Do the wacky fact. Have you ever thought about having them ready to go?
No, it's supposed to be a spur of the moment thing.
No, it's not.
The summit of Mount Everest is made of marine limestone, meaning that the highest point on Earth
Was underwater.
was once the seafloor of an ancient ocean before being uplifted by tectonic forces over millions of years. No, I mean, you can't tell me many people knew that.
I think I didn't
That's
know.
pretty known, ain't it?
Yeah.
No,
That the
of
freaking
Everest, the
mountain?
highest point.
Yeah, that the whole freaking world dang there was under. I'll give you this just because it's interesting. I feel like that is a pretty common one when they talk about Mount Everest. Like, it's pretty crazy. The highest mountain in the world has also been underwater.
Bigfoot lives on Mount Everest.
Nick knew it. Didn't you?
Jeez.
Yeah, that's saying something right there.
In Argentina's Patagonia, a
He's smarter
German
than me on
shepherd
history.
named Tolero stayed beside his owner for 23 days after the man passed away in a snowstorm. Tolero kept wild animals at bay and curled against his owner, trying to keep him warm the entire time.
That's excessively sad. Also not a fact.
Why?
Get out of the freaking stories.
That is a fact. The dog.
We've been over this
protected-
last time.
Because knows what they'll all tell you is that your dog's going to eat you as soon as you die.
I'm giving you it. Who the heck says that?
all of them. Go look it up. No, they'll say dogs will too.
I've never
They
heard
say dogs
that.
wait a little bit longer. They'll give you like 3 days.
I'm giving you
Then
an
they're
X
eating it.
because that was excessively sad and I didn't need to hear that.
Oh, this one, I don't. This may be an X too, but you need to hear it again. Medical experts caution that sitting on the toilet for longer than 10 minutes can be unhealthy.
Nah, I guess I'm unhealthy.
Is that it?
It's the only time where I don't have to hear anybody.
Oh, here's
Listen,
one more.
buddy.
In 1985, Jolt Cola was launched as a stimulant for students and young professionals with the slogan, all the sugar and twice the caffeine.
That's pretty funny too.
We've come away.
You know, Coca-Cola used to actually have cocaine in it, right?
Is that legit?
100% legit until they outlawed it.
How do you get away with that?
That was the energy
Do you-
because
do you-
it wasn't illegal.
But do you know what
Cocaine?
Yeah, but do you
It
know
was
what
not
people
illegal.
would be doing now? They would be like going and buying cases and freaking refining it out to just get the cocaine.
Yeah.
Or snorting the Coca-Cola. Is that why part of the reason his name is Coke? I don't know that I believe this.
This is a legitimate
Cola-
thing where they
Cola
used to
comes
have
from
the
Coke, from the same plant.
it was not
The
for
cocaine
public
part,
either.
though.
No, well, I mean, it's just a pure
I'd have to
form.
watch the thing again. It was originally designed for a totally different purpose of like energy and giving you like a focus way back when. And when they started making I believe it was for the military, but when they started making it illegal and everything, they said they couldn't be doing that anymore. They said, okay, well, how do we get the same taste? We're just going to take the cocaine out and we're going to add a whole bunch of sugar to like their syrup or whatever. And then something else went illegal, so they changed that. And then they ended up with Coca-Cola, and they never intended on making the actual drink, and everybody loved it. And they continued to make it. It's legit. Go read it.
I will. I'll have to go read it because that seems far-fetched.
It was a long time ago. Long time ago. Like freaking 30s or something, whenever they came out.
Yeah. Like the year before I was born.
Because you're telling me that cocaine was legal in the 30s?
There was
Traces of
nothing against it. Yeah,
Right.
like small amounts.
Well, that's like now you can't go into a pharmacy and buy Sudafed. I mean, it's behind the thing where like because people were taking certain drugs that were just things that you would commonly have in your store, but they could get enough of it out of there and make their own drug. And so now it's illegal. You can't buy it. It's not on the counter. You got to get it from them. Even though it's not issued by a doctor, it's something you would just go in to get.
If I'm wrong on the Coke one, I'm going to be pissed because most of the time you've made me so skeptical of everything in my life that I go read and then I read another one and I read another one, and I've done that on this one. So if it ain't true, these suckers have done a dang good job of putting a lot of articles about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yep.
We're not going to talk about the bear trip then. They went too long, so we'll save the bear trip for the bear podcast that's coming up. However, I will tell you guys again to go to the website. The website has gotten a revamping. Easton has been working on it diligently. So check it out because the Raised Canine line is in there, all the dog products. There's all kinds of stuff we have all the knocks in right now, and we have some scents in, but we do not have all the scents yet, guys. End of June, middle of June, something like that. We'll have everything in there. But some of you guys, the reason I'm saying this, because I know we've gotten some orders now, people thinking scents already. So, and yes, we are starting to think toward deer as well because we're starting to see some with velvet on their antlers and some pretty good bucks already. So we get it. We're trying to be up there with you, but check out the apparel. Don't forget what Warren said. Make sure if you're listening to the podcast, tell a buddy, leave us a review. And other than that, we will see you guys next week at the Raised Hunting Podcast. Thank you.